Well, you can't win them all, can you? Two straight losses for the Raptors, one to the Hornets after, I think, a terrible stretch at the end of the game, failed clutch time, a rarity for the Raptors this season, and what seemed like a scheduled loss that became almost a certain loss with Jakob Poeltl getting rested, and the Raptors playing a good Knicks team in MSG, losing quite handily. Things are coming to a head with the unsustainable practices that kept the Raptors afloat. They need to find their footing once again. 0-2 in their last two, 9-0 prior to that, and now 14-7 on the season. I think still the third seed in the Eastern Conference, maybe even the second. This is Bald, don't lie. For people who are looking for the Pull Up Trey podcast, Trey is attending to more important things currently. I think he'll be back for Thursday's episode. Lewis and I are discussing this now. A long intro, Lewis. How are you doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. We've been saved by pure circumstance. Um, the original goal, the original intention of this podcast, we need to be honest, was are the Raptors actually contenders like the numbers say they are? And I am glad we didn't record that before they lost two games in a row. We seem a lot, we know more now after the weekend and have more perhaps compelling things to say. Can have maybe a more nuanced discussion.
Well, I think it largely surrounds two big things. One, for the listeners and viewers, the Raptors have the worst offense in the NBA since RJ Barrett went down. They are 30th. It's not good in transition, it's not good in the half court, it's not good anywhere. And while RJ isn't the sole explanation for that, he does give you some insight into there are no empty calories in this Raptors offense. It's a very fragile ecosystem of contributors. And when you take one out, suddenly things go awry. Brandon Ingram's 53% incredible mid-range pull-up scoring was papering over so much of what the Raptors were doing. He took 79 shots across 3 games. And just now against the Knicks, I think he only ended up taking 11 or yeah, it was 14 points on 11 shots. A lot of that is fatigue and seeing, Bridges on him, Josh Hart in the gap, seeing these guys repeatedly. The Raptors were papering over something. There's still some good stuff going on in these games. Scottie Barnes probably chief among those reasons. Emmanuel quickly has not been so bad as a shot maker. Could fine tune some of the point guarding stuff, and the Raptors still bust their asses defensively. They're doing things, but a unstoppable juggernaut, they are not.
Mhm.
Lewis, the Brandon Ingram fragile ecosystem thing, that's where I want to start. You throw your dart at whichever one you choose.
When you take the hardest shot diet in the NBA, you don't want that to be the team's source of offense. That can be yours. That's fine. But I think to me, the biggest lack, especially with Jakob Poeltl out as well as RJ Barrett, has been easy shots for Ingram's teammates. He can take 10 mid range pull ups a game, and the Raptors can score 125, and it can be very sustainable. But without Poeltl there for the easy dump downs, lay downs, and he shoots 70 something percent on those, without RJ Barrett to drive the gaps and either finish or keep the wheels churning, they just don't have anything other than Ingram's pull-ups. A player's 1 of 5 on the floor. You can have a weakness, not to say Ingram's shot making is a weakness, it's not, but broadly, you can have a weakness and that be a team's strength. I wrote about that for Jamal Shed actually today, where his individual rim finishing ability to get there has been a weakness on the year. But because of his passing, the team has been incredibly buoyed by him in the game at the rim, right? So his individual weakness is actually a strength because of what he's doing for the other four. Without Pirtle, without Barrett, Ingram's shot making is the only thing they've had, with a couple exceptions offensively. There just hasn't been a sense of, okay, we have these hard shots and it, is able to catalyze easy shots elsewhere. It's just been hard shots. Can Ingram drag you to the finish line? Not always.
And honestly, dragged them away from the finish line against the Hornets. He went 0 for 9 in the fourth quarter. and was part of quite a few defensive breakdowns. Now, this is not a reactionary podcast. We're not pointing like the blame arrow at Brandon Ingram or saying, oh, now the Raptors, they're on a completely different path. No, it was just like riding I think Caitlin called it the magic carpet of Brandon Ingram shot
Yes.
making. It's not going to last forever. And he's not going to shoot, 0 for 9 in most fourth quarters. But there's some sort of some sort of normalization going on here with the numbers. It happens rapidly, sometimes crashing, sometimes it rises out of nowhere. And for example, like you brought up Jamal Shed, I believe he's 6 of 26 in his last 5 games from the field. And part of that is a consequence of he no longer gets to be the guy who stops short of the paint and hands off to cutters because there's less
Yep.
cutters, because there's more limited players on the floor who want a catch and shoot three, and they don't have the gumption to drive the middle the way that RJ Barrett does, either with a live dribble or off of a cut. There's just less danger on the floor, and that means that Jamal Shed is relied upon more for his own shot making. Beat his man. He rejected a screen and got to the rim for a layup against the Knicks, but these types of things, it just shows the pressure points. This also all coincides with Jacoby Walter playing pretty well, but Jamison Battle hasn't hit his threes. He's taken like 4 during this run. Gradey is currently in the worst 3-point shooting slump of his career.
Yeah.
Terrible. And Scottie Barnes is playing great, but we talked about rising tides lift all boats. There's no rising tide right now for the Raptors offensively. And it's resulted in a team that went all the way up to number 2 half court offense, number 4 or 3 in overall offense, and then and that wasn't only a consequence of Brandon Ingram's, mid-range going in or not. It was a consequence of many different avenues of attack. And RJ Barrett is not the whole thing, but he's an example. He's a perfect little example of what the Raptors need. Is there anything else we're missing offensively for this Raptors team?
I have it right now. I wrote in February of 2024 that RJ Barrett is the player most helped by context on the Raptors because he was the only guy who was able to drive a dig. Like, beat his guy, get through a dig, and reach that next layer of the defense. It's been almost a full calendar year where the Raptors have lacked that skill. That's not that rare in the NBA. If you watch the Raptors, you might be like, wow, it's hard to drive through lanes in the NBA. If you watch other teams, you're like, not really. It would very much behoove this team to have 1 or 2 more rotation players who can just bring the ball through that shell when they have an advantage. RJ Barrett, people talk about trading RJ Barrett. And, it could improve the team, but you need a better RJ Barrett. You need someone who can drive a gap better than him. Like, you would need to trade RJ Barrett for Jaylen Brown, for example. Like, that's a guy who would improve the team. His driving is exceptional. It's just people don't understand how uniquely capable Barrett is as a Raptor. Sure, there are ways to improve upon his skill set, but man, not with the team this Raptors currently field. And you really see the lack of that one ability when he's not on the floor.
Yeah, it's also how uniquely incapable this good offense is. It's a
Yeah.
melding of the two things. And this isn't to say that, not to make it too much on RJ, because this is also coinciding with guys missing shots that they were hitting over past situations. But the point about the dig, and if you say Scottie doesn't usually drive through digs because Scottie's
No.
usually driving at a slower pace because he doesn't draw big closeouts. So he has to use a lot of guile and strength to get past guys. If Scottie had the big lanes that RJ finds himself looking at, Scottie would try to punch them too, and we'd get a better idea of that. But he's just not guarded the same way. And even though Scottie is shooting, I think 42% from 3 right now, and we can talk about that more in a bit, it's been great. It's just his game has been in so many different places this season. And I think like that speaks to what the Raptors, a lot of their success was. You and I, before the season, when we're talking about, why was the American media so down on this Raptors team? We talked about how the Raptors were an offense that needed a lot more attention paid to it for why it might succeed. That it wasn't just guys spamming the same shot chart. That the shot chart might have overlap, but is significantly varied in the process of how those shots come, and by proxy of that, significantly varied in the changes in the defense they create. And so what we have is Brandon Ingram, who is absolutely vital to their offensive process. Scottie Barnes, who's absolutely vital to their offensive process. RJ Barrett, absolutely vital. Emmanuel Quickley, absolutely vital. Jakob Pertl, absolutely vital. And that's why having any of these guys step out is pretty tough. Even when Colin Murray Boyles is like a pretty good facsimile of what's important on the court in a game against the Knicks, the Raptors just don't have enough. And that is, I guess, like the irony of the analysis of this team, at least from outside, is that when people thought these guys would create mitigating reactions, mitigating, feedback, they actually build upon and support each other's talents in Darko's offense in a very unique way. And we haven't seen that the last few games, I guess.
People think of deep teams. The Raptors are a deep team right now as plug and play, right? Oh, someone goes down, it's deep. You can just put someone in their spot. The Raptors are not that. You cannot just put someone in the spot, which is why it's such a fun, unique team to cover, right? It's rare, and it makes it, as you described when we talked about this episode, a delicate ecosystem. That's the perfect phrase for Toronto's offense.
Yeah. RJ should be back soon-ish. The Raptors, I guess defensively, like even with RJ gone for these games and seeing how it really negatively affects the offense, and even like Brandon Ingram, when he first got there, one of his first quotes on media day was that RJ has, an inherent like magnetism, and that you don't have to call plays, and that he is a more capable passer, and that just it's easy to find him on the floor. Brandon Ingram, a guy who just had 5 turnovers with the extra attention, has been looking for like, where can I get the ball off with all this extra attention, has not been able to find guys. He's not been able to find his outlet. And RJ Barrett was the guy who was continuously appearing in the lane like, I can help you out here, because he's so hungry to go get the ball and help out. Emmanuel Quickley's quote to me in Montreal, he cuts because he wants to score. And you know what? That could be framed as a selfish thing. It's not. It's never a bad idea to score the basketball. Jacoby Walter, I think, is the big thing. Jacoby Walter is a big thing because we're getting proof of concept, right? Because a lot of the motivation for RJ, once you realize there's a lot of adaptability on offense, is what he can't do defensively. So you mentioned everybody putting him in trade packages and all that and the like. And we're looking at a guy who he's been defending well. He did a really good job. I thought he did like a very strong job on Brunson just now. He's had a great string of games defensively. Kudos to him. What have you made of the Raptors' defense? It's not like super overachieving relative to before, but it's been strong over this stretch. And there's pretty much one guy checking in for the other.
Yeah, the defense, and this was what I thought was going to be the main point of our conversation when we were talking about other contenders, has been helped by shooting luck. I was just looking at the numbers because I wrote about this for the Knicks game. The Raptors had, from October 31st to November 26th, the lowest three-point percentage from opponents of any team in the league.
Yep.
It was 30% from the field. They shot on open threes sub 30%. Well, the Raptors gave up, I think, the most open threes of any team, just per game. So I actually was at a press conference where someone asked Darko, can you control for that? What are you doing that makes opponents miss? And it's funny because the analytics wisdom, which you've mentioned on your pod many times, is you can't control shot accuracy, but you can control to some extent shot frequency. Darko said the opposite, actually. He cited those Rockets in 2017, 18, 19, where it was like, man, you try to run them off the line, they just get a three elsewhere. You can't really change what they shoot, but you can contest and force misses. Very, very interesting. I don't know. I'm not qualified enough to speak to either side. Darko's an expert. Analytics guys are experts. I'm not. But no matter how you view that, no matter what side you land on, the Raptors were lucky, right? Even if you think you can control, it's not to that extent.
Yeah,
And we just
it's
saw the shoe drop. We just saw the Knicks make 9 threes in the first quarter. And the defense has been good. The defense has been strong. But how strong can the defense be once opponents start making threes? That's what we just saw.
it's
I
the
think the Knicks game was more representative. How did you feel about the defense now against in that game?
is the Josh Hart corollary. Uh
Yeah,
because it went really well for a time. They had CMB play on him, roam off of him, and then they gummed up all of the Knicks offense. It was a huge part of that big, what was it, 18-3 run. The
yeah,
first half or three quarters of that was with CMB on the floor, and that was meaningful having him cheat off. But Hart eventually, as the and Hart is the cheat off guy. It's why like Hart isn't
yep,
in the starting lineup, right? Or well, he was for this game, but when OG is there, he's not in the starting lineup, and he doesn't play because they want to play playoff basketball because they have higher aspirations. And every single like the Knicks keep losing to the Pacers in the playoffs, and why? Because they put Pascal Siakam on Josh Hart and have him bust
yeah.
up everything else. And so they're trying to figure out another way around it. In this game, he goes 4-7 from downtown. That's a tidy little number. And the Knicks still, by the way, finished at 36%. Obviously, Deuce McBride and Josh Hart, 4 of 8 and 4 of 7. Brunson goes 1 of 6. Jordan Clarkson goes 3 of 10. Tyler Kolek 0 of 2. The guards, I guess, disappointing a little bit. But defensively, I think the Raptors, their principles are a little bit cleverer now and more finely tuned to the team. It's what Caitlin and I talked about, when she cited that the Raptors basically cut their backcourt pressure in half. They significantly, peeled back their ball pressure. They started incorporating more live switching for more limited defenders, and they asked their help guys to step up and they track back and they stay connected. Like the defense, even with a game where the Knicks thoroughly outdid them, the defense I think is tracking quite well. This game, even though there were a lot of breakdowns, and there's certain players on the roster who are definitely more frequently part of them, as you can see them get fatigued. Uh, I still think the defense is in a strong place. Portland will represent a really nice like gut check on how all of this is going, but this game reinforced a lot of the offensive woes to me, and didn't reinforce any like worries about defense because you've mentioned it. We were going to talk about the Raptors. Like, are they contenders because the numbers like them? Even if the Raptors won these two games, I'm not saying yes because they still have so many things that are up in the air, and they do have that fragile ecosystem that they have to keep up. But defensively, I was I'm like, yeah, okay. You gave up what, 116 to New York? It's not the end of things. And we're finally at the part of the season where, one game doesn't swing your ranking wildly. What did you make of it?
I really like the ability for Toronto to have a good defense no matter who's on the floor. Um, that's where we saw Emmanuel quickly, being billed as a good defender in New York, is because when he was on the floor, the defense was good. Not necessarily because he was a lockdown defender, but he was just part of an effective unit. And we're finally seeing that. And it's not just quickly. RJ Barrett has been part of a successful defensive unit for quite some time in Toronto now.
Yep.
It's with Pirtle, it's been good. With Sandro Mamukelashvili, it's been good. They have principles now that they've shifted after those first 5 games that are replicable, and different guys with different strengths, different weaknesses are able to recreate similar um, um, events, which is really, really successful. They're far less reliant on forcing turnovers. It's been good. I do think it's been boosted by the numbers, but it looks like a strong, sustainable top 10-ish, top 12-ish defense. Even if the shooting comes around and they don't stay in that spot they're at right now, I do think it's a pretty happy spot right now. Just visually, not even the numbers, like what they're actually achieving.
And even to that point, like the starting lineup has not defended threes well, and their defensive numbers are not good, but that's actually a good thing. because they weren't one of the lineups that were buoyed by, teams missing open threes. They were actually a team, they were a lineup that was getting buried by open
Yeah.
threes, and they were trying to score to keep up with it. And they still found their way because they actually linked up quite well offensively to winning minutes. And on top of all of this, the Raptors, you mentioned being a deep team. Jamal Shed after this game is probably going to be at like 36, 37% from three after,
Yeah.
spending a good chunk above 44, 45%. Jamison Battle will come down to like 60% or something. Gradey, I think, will be at 30 over the course of the season. Last season, Jamison Battle finishes at 40. Gradey finishes at like 35. 5% is a big deal, but there's a 30% gap here, and Jamal Shed is normalizing. Gradey should, if there's a God that believes in having prior shooting talent, something will normalize regressing to the mean, progressing to the mean. Jacoby has done a hell of a job coming in and shooting the basketball. The on off the dribble stuff, it's tough, but he crashes the glass well. He cuts well enough, and he's been hitting threes. Finishing, hey, who knows? But he's just, of everybody there, Jacoby is satisfying the most things. I'm glad that he's the one stepping into the starting lineup. I'm glad he's getting these reps. And this is another adaptability thing because he was available for the first couple games and didn't play.
Yeah.
And he was behind other guys in the rotation. He was not getting the same run. And then Gradey, who, and this is the worst part, past seasons, he'd be sitting at 35% with really difficult shot, difficulty. This year's shots are really easy, and it's about 30%. There was a path for him, and he's played better defensively, and he's doing some
Yep.
things that other guys can't do. He can drive a closeout way better than any of those other guys and expect to get it up at the rim. It's just they need more, and with all the guys regressing, there's also room for progression. I'm not here to expect that Grady's going to continue this 25% from three stretch. But if it does, God bless, then probably not long for the league.
That's where meat's on the bone, though,
Yeah.
right? Like, you look at a team win 9 in a row, and you expect everyone's playing to capacity. And in a lot of ways, they are, right? In a lot of ways, they are. There is still meat on the bone for some players in some areas. Brandon Ingram's passing really, I think, is going to come around in super juicy ways. I think Scottie Barnes driving, as we've seen actually in the last 2-3 games, being a lot better, is really going to punch up, up, up. And I think the scoring from Gradey Dick, like we have proof of concept from the start of last season that he is a high level NBA scorer. I believe he is. The aesthetic show, like I trust my eye test on that one. These aren't huge. It's not like you have Jalen Williams coming back who hasn't played yet. It's not meat on the bone like that. But there's a bite here, a bite there. You add it all together, you got one wing left in the basket.
Yeah. The meat, the like clear meat that you get to eat, whatever. Okay. RJ coming back is a known quantity. Even
Yeah,
the numbers might go up or down for him, but teams play him a certain way. He makes teams confront him in a certain way, and there's a cause and effect of him being on the floor. He's guaranteed to give that. Go ahead.
he does not pump fake. When he's open, he will shoot the three, and God, that is beneficial to an all. There were so many games earlier in the year where it was just guys was open, pump fake drive. Guy was open, pump fake drive. It's like you cannot build an offense like that. RJ will shoot when he's open, no matter what, and I adore that about him.
Yep. It's important. There was one possession where I think the Raptors looked down three, borderline wide open triples on the same
Yeah.
possession against the Knicks.
Yeah.
And you could just tell guys are wearing it a little bit. It's a tough night in MSG. A guy who I thought the numbers aren't really big, but was running around with duct tape, keeping the defense together. Scottie Barnes. I just kind of want to focus on Scottie. He's been unbelievable. Uh, the numbers are going to say he's been good, strong.
Mhm.
Defensively, on top of those good, strong offensive numbers, I think he's been just sublime, man. The way he's able to lock off driving lanes, not surrender over the top passes, battle in and bust up against other bigs, play make defensively, step up and make teams change what they want to do, and then go out on the other side. And depending on what the Raptors want from him offensively, it can look different night to night. Brandon Ingram, for all that he's done offensively, and it's a lot, he's been very one note. There's all this talk we
Mhm.
had prior, and I questioned this. I was like, well, you want some things to change, but he did, in his quotes, he was kind of like, I'll shoot more threes, I guess. And it sounded like, and he's been basically Brandon Ingram ISO superstar. That's the that's the fulcrum of his offensive input. It hasn't been super adaptable. Scottie is the one who's having to put on a different cap every night offensively. And while it's not the same level of talent, especially in shot making as Ingram, it's close to the same level offensively of importance because
Yeah.
he's doing so much. Where are you on the Raptors who, if anything carries over from this stretch to halfway through the season, a shoe in for All-Star?
I find in my writing I rarely put box score stats in there. Just doesn't occur to me. Scottie Barnes' box score stats are outrageous right now. I just like to say them. I would like to say his numbers. He is averaging 20 points a game, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks. I imagine if you plug that into the basketball reference, like who's hit those thresholds, you're looking at like 6 guys ever, right? But he is shooting 55% on twos, uh, 40% on threes, 86% from the line. It's just, he is. Remember when Darko in his first year said, if you can do one thing in the league that you're really good at, you'll stick. 2 things you're a great player. 3 things you're a star. 4 things you're out of the league, right? Because you're just trying to do too much. Scottie Barnes is that exception, I think, to what Darko was trying to say. He is doing so much, and I would actually push back on you a little bit when you said he's not as talented. It's just that, as Brandon Ingram, the talent comes in different ways. The handle is clearly tiers and tiers and tiers below. The ability to contort your body into shooting motion from any angle. The footwork is tiers and tiers below. But the decision making, the passing, the speed with which he is able to, churn the chains, like, he's a running back that is always getting a first down. That's talent. That's incredible talent. If you look at career numbers, guys like Draymond Green rank as some of the highest single number metric players in NBA history. Not guys like there are no guys like Draymond Green. Draymond Green ranks as one of the most effective single number metric players in league history. And not much of a handle, not much of a driver, but he churned offense in such a way that it wasn't just defense. He was a huge offensive boost. And I'm not saying that Scottie Barnes is succeeding like him, but you are looking at a guy who, in some ways, is not what you look at when you see a star. When you look at a guy like Brandon Ingram, it's obvious to anyone. My mom can watch a game and be like, wow, that guy's good at basketball. There's deeper stuff going on with Barnes. It's not as obvious, but it is as effective. And in fact, I would even say more effective. It's been profoundly impactful for the Raptors, and it's just been everything the team's been waiting on. This is the stardom. More is great. This is all they need. This is the output that the Raptors have been dreaming of.
Like, I'm glad you waxed poetic because like all those things are true of Scotty. Is that you look a little bit more, and also even the Draymond Green point is Draymond benefited greatly from a really friendly context, and Scotty Barnes has not had the pleasure of living there, not once.
If he played with Steph Curry, it oh my anyway, keep continue.
Yeah, And that's the thing. That's the thing too. That's where Draymond Green is his own. He's a Hall of Famer. He'll be there.
Mhm.
All those kinds of things. Comps are often cannon fodder. I said it again in the comments. They were saying I'm being paid to say cannon fodder every episode, and
Great.
yeah. Beyond that, Aaron Gordon is another guy who, to be loosed, he needed that super friendly context, and that's why, although I don't find comparisons like that to either of those guys to be truly like rude or anything like that, Scottie just has not had the pleasure of playing with Steph Curry or Nikola Jokic. And
Yeah.
both those guys needed that context. Scottie is able to survive and thrive without it. I wonder what it would look like if he had it. But he is a major talent. He is, if the Raptors are in a top 4 seed, he's going to be in major contention for all NBA, and he
Yep.
will be voted onto an all defensive team, and he might contend for the first team. And at that point, all NBA, given if these offensive numbers hold whatsoever, it would be really hard to look the other way. He
Yep.
has been, and you can just see it. You really see it every time he's out there. He is carrying on both sides of the floor. Defense, it never stops. Offense, it's more so like for waves at a time. But if he was giving you any more, he'd be in different conversations. He wouldn't be stuck in a backlog of guys who are trying to make a jump. He would be the jumper, and he
Yeah.
would be there.
There were inklings. You and I both talked about this last year. For a team that is intentionally tanking, like we can say that the coaching decisions last year, they were trying to lose games. For Scottie Barnes to have played defense with the level of attention and commitment that he played over that tanking stretch of the year was remarkable. It looked remarkably on his talent, his commitment, and frankly his character, that he was playing
Yep.
like that on a team that had no desire to be playing like that. So, that carries forward. That means something this year. That's building habits. And I was looking at the historic numbers every time they added one more to the
Mm-hmm.
winning streak. It's like, oh, this is the most since this year. This is the most since this year. The last time when they won 7 in a row or 8 in a row, Scottie Barnes was the only guy who was on that team. 9 in a row, he wasn't there. You need to build all those habits again. These are not Kyle Lowry's Raptors. You don't have infrastructure. You have Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes has to be that infrastructure, and he absolutely has been.
Big old piece of smiling, excited scaffolding. He's just helping you get up there and achieve things. And you
Yeah.
know what? Scaffolding, you can pack it up and take it from place to place. It fits anywhere. It fits on the side of a house. It fits on the sidewalk. It fits in the high school gym. You put it, yeah, it came off a little weird out of my mouth. Sidewalk. Uh, Scottie Barnes. That's a nice little piece on Scottie. The team overall, I'm not any more down on them than I was
No.
before this. They should have won that game in Charlotte. And there's like Brandon Ingram was obscuring some real lack of
Yes.
driving punch, which we
Yeah.
talked about. And I can't even, he missed 14 shots in a row from the fourth quarter on in the Charlotte game to
Yep.
halfway through the second quarter of the Knicks game. I can't even look at myself and be like upset at that. They're just running him off. They're running him off screens and be like, invent offense, do something. They'd be like, please save us, please save us. Now the defensive stuff, I have qualms with some of the defensive stuff. You can see fatigue is setting in over the course of games, but I can't bring myself to be upset at anyone's process in the early season so far. I'm upset at like three things that are happening. Gradey is in the worst shooting slump. And this isn't even me being like, I think Grady's good. It'll come around. The team needs his offense.
Yeah.
They desperately. Not even just the off the dribble stuff. Matt and Blake discussed, I saw a transcription of it, so I didn't listen, but they discussed that maybe he got a little bit too beefy big boy up top. I don't know. Players have complained about that being a difficulty before. His shot making, I'd like to see it quickly. It had a couple plays against the Knicks. I'm waiting on a little bit more creativity insofar as the passing off the bounce. And then lastly, CMB, a little bit too foul happy. Sometimes just like mucking it up in the backcourt, sending guys to the line, stuff like that. Those are the three things I'm watching, and I'm like, don't like it. But this is a remark. Like if imagine what those things would be if this season wasn't going well. Can you think of what you don't like?
Yeah, I think Jamal Shed, his defense still needs to come around. It's not what it was, and it's funny because every game now that they're winning and he's playing well, it's like, oh, he's a great defender now, but he's not. If you, just because they're winning and he's playing well doesn't mean his defense has come around. If it does, and I do think it will, it's just I think it'll take a long time. I don't think it'll be this season. I don't think it'll be next season. I think he will be a very strong guard defender in his career, but I do think there's just a lot that needs to be ironed out. And but yeah, there's other things. Obviously, there's a lot of things you can say. Oh, the Raptors could use an upgrade here. They can use an upgrade there. Ultimately, we're looking at a team that is worth upgrading. We came into this with the animating question: Are they content? Are they a contender? I actually want to rephrase that and ask you a different question. Should they try to be?
I don't think so. I think what you want to see, especially if we're looking at, like, what did you say earlier? You said, okay, well, if you want to upgrade RJ Barrett, you got to go get, you
Jalen
said
Brown.
Jalen Brown. The Raptors are not, I think what a lot of people thought prior to the season was perhaps a guy such as Keon Ellis
Yeah, that's not.
would elegantly do what the Raptors need offensively from RJ's quote unquote role and would expand upon what they're getting defensively. I think a lot of people, that might have been like conventional wisdom, right? It's why so many people have been thinking, well, Joe Schmo can replace him in the starting lineup because it's
Yeah,
good. The Raptors, I think, need a substantial piece to really upgrade this team. And it's probably why so many people were, I guess, not excited about the prospect of like Brandon Ingram joining the team because they didn't see the path to contender status. I don't like how many teams have that. How many teams, and just because the Raptors can't convince themselves by saying like we have a 22-year-old who's actually going to become like the best player in the league by the time he's 26, because that's the path a lot of teams are selling themselves on, and it's a farce. It's not real. For a small percentage, it's real. The Raptors don't have that. They have more certainty in their ceiling, and it'd be tough to like trade out of it in one move. What I want is the Raptors to assess the data, to be a team that wins a very handsome amount of games this year and makes decisions where New York was winning and they traded Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett, two guys who they were like, we can't see them in the playoff grinder of really elevating us to where we ultimately want to be. The fit with our for sure stud guy, Jalen Brunson, is not perfect. Why don't we go get somebody who was devalued because he was on a losing team, and RJ and Quickly were overvalued because they're on a winning team? The Raptors need to put themselves in that spot where they can trade and move from places of strengths. And they have been operating from a point of weakness for years. They parlayed the Pascal Siakam trade further down the line into something different. But what the Pacers have gotten out of Pascal for what they traded for Pascal is an absurdity. And
yeah.
hopefully Brandon Ingram provides the same, like, nice, even though that pick ends up being probably pretty great. But regardless, I would rather they assess and just be like a strong team who, if they want to cut bait, be bold enough to do so.
The upgrade was Denny Avdia or Andrew Nembhard.
Yeah.
Those were the guys, and they're too big now. Like, I think there were upgrades along the road here. There were chances to trade for some of these guys. Um, right now, I think it's exactly as you said. The upgrade is making the guys you have the best players that they can be and working from there. You know, this team's not going to be a contender. Sure, if you added Jalen Brown onto the team without trading anyone, maybe you would be a contender. That's not a real thing. That's not how basketball works, right?
I also
Um,
like that Jalen Brown is like the de facto ad guy because I've actually been like probably lower on him than consensus for so long.
I've been low on Jalen Brown for a long, long time. I wrote about this. I forget where, when I used to freelance everywhere. And the one thing that he actually was one of the best in the league at, he just always shot 55% on like 15 drives a game. He just always, always, always. He was a phenomenal
Good,
driver.
good pacing.
If you're going to upgrade on RJ Barrett, you need a better driver. That's not a lot of guys. You need a better shooter, and you really need a strong defender. Jalen Brown's like one of the only guys available who can check those boxes, and he's not even available. It's just not a thing. It's like, oh, go get a superstar. Great. It's like everyone would love that. But that's Keon Ellis upgrades on Ochai. He's not upgrading on RJ Barrett. Adding a ninth man into this rotation doesn't help the Raptors. It's a fragile ecosystem.
Yep.
You add another hummingbird. Cool, that's nifty. You need a lodestone species here. You need a wolf, baby. Those are hard to come by. And the Raptors, I think Colin Murray Boyles might grow into that type of guy. He has looked phenomenal. Not this season. We're not looking at the Raptors trying to contend this season. Actually, when you said, I forget the exact words you used, they're great. You said something about sticky something or other when you introduced Scottie Barnes. I thought you were talking about Colin Murray Boyles. He really, like, he had a quiet stretch. He opened the season where his 3-point shot was falling, and that papered over, I think, some slow getting used to NBA confines. And then the three stopped falling, and he wasn't used to NBA confines. I think this was the first game where I was like, yeah, I don't give a darn about the 3-point shot. It's like, wow, this guy really is digging it right now. Like, I was super into his contributions against the Knicks. He's gonna be a guy, man. He's so good.
He was great against the Knicks. I thought it was particularly impressive that he hung in against Mitchell Robinson. Without anyone cracking back for like help on the box outs, he just kind of was like 1v1ing him. And
Yeah,
that means he did leave what he thought was going to be a 3-point shot that ended up being a pump fake and a drive just so he could go box out Mitchell Robinson. Listen, that happened to the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. It is what it is. Mitchell Robinson is that level of offensive rebounder. There are
mm-hmm.
always going to be those miscommunications. But CMB, he's a good inflection point because CMB is the guy who you say we're getting info. If he does well enough this year, if the three looks like okay, this is something that you feel will develop to the point of passability, if he actually becomes brave enough to start testing these drives on bigs, which he's been timid about, and understandably so. It's hard. If he starts to flash this kind of stuff, then you say, okay, we can start to bake in some expected progression here. Where can we move? What
Yeah,
what what path can we try and what course can we chart going forward? And Jacoby Walter and Grady Dick, and even if you add Keon Ellis to this, it doesn't allow you to chart a new course. It simply
yeah,
makes this one a little better. But it's you wanted, and right now it doesn't look like it. There's still room for there's a smaller potential than before. You wanted Grady to be a guy who you make decisions around. Doesn't look like it right now. Jacoby Walter, you want him to be a guy you make decisions around. Up in the air. With the certainty of the defense and the 3-point shot looking dependable, it looks more certain than Grady currently. You want these guys, your draft picks, to inform decision making. And right now, the Raptors are the only guys informing their decision making are Scottie Barnes, who is the longest tenured Raptor, and the guys they've traded for, who they knew were good players.
yeah,
Development has to come at some point because the quality players are holding up their end of the bargain. And the back end of the bench guys are holding up their bargain as back end of bench guys. But it doesn't matter where you're drafted. You need to be able to pop off. The Raptors have not yet gotten that. And they need somebody. Somebody needs to pop off.
yes. But they've put themselves in the place where that will matter.
Yep.
Last season, let me actually go back 2 seasons ago. They had all those losses, and they didn't get anything out of it. No one played well. There were no huge performances. No one was stepping into 25-point games 2 years ago. Last season, they had all those losses. Jacoby Walter hit that soccer throw-in 3-point
Hmm.
game winner. Jamal Shad had fingertips on what would have been a game winner, I think, the next game.
Yes.
They had moments, and those guys have stepped into bigger shoes, bigger roles. They've informed more situations. They've put themselves in a place now where if they have someone really explode into a new path, they're ready for it. They just haven't been ready for it. And that's something that, are they contenders? We both knew where we were going to land on that. It could have been 11 in a row. It's something of a question that's really a predetermined answer. But they're in a situation where they are ready to take further strides. It's positive team development driven by positive player development. And man, is that fun to watch and cover along the way.
Yep. And players develop better in winning situations. No
Yes.
ifs, ands, or buts. Listen, Colin Sexton, 24 points per game, and it just didn't mean anything, man.
Yeah.
It didn't mean anything. There are guys who've been putting up numbers on Utah, and it hasn't meant anything. It just hasn't. There are guys all around the league. On Washington, does it mean something? Do you ever get to find out? For the players, I mean, hell yeah, go get numbers, go get paid. And I know a lot of players, I think correctly, are like, hey, this is my job. My first job is to get paid and make money and to
Mhm.
like really maximize my value while I'm in these years. The second one is probably to win. And I understand that, but from the fans' perspective, from the, putting on the cap of the GM perspective, when you play winning basketball, you kind of know that it fits. You say, "Oh, well, we've won while this guy was in the rotation. We've won while this guy was a starter. We've won." Everything you do matters more because it translated to something. Gradey,
Yeah.
the doors are still, even with Walter playing well, and kudos to Walter, the doors are still blown wide the hell open for Gradey to make shots and be like the guy off the bench. The path is still there. If he doesn't take this one, then popping the hell off at the start of a year when the Raptors were 2-13 instead of 14-5, it's meaningless. You got to prove it when you win. And while Gradey, you mentioned it, proof of concept, it gives me some semblance of hope for sure. More than a semblance. But it's got to happen when you win. Everything has to happen when you win because it's easy to lose games. There's so much comfort in losing.
Last time I talked to Darko, I asked him about the on-off defensive ratings of Grady and Sandro
Nice.
because they were the best on the team. And it's, I was like, on-offs, how much attention do you pay? And he's like, their defense has been okay. And that's a good answer. He has not taken a victory lap. And I know I've heard you give him opportunities to take it. I've asked him questions that gave him an opportunity. I've seen other reporters ask questions. He has continued to say, just like nothing is proven yet. And we've seen that, right? You can win 9 in a row. You can win 13 of 14. And you lose two in a row, the boulder's right back at the bottom of the hill. And that's good. That's what a good team, not a great team, faces. Some teams in the NBA earn uh, success even in losses. The Raptors are not there. There's no reason they should be there. And no one on the team is treating them like they are there, right? It doesn't matter how we treat them. The team's not treating it like they're there, which is great, which bodes well. I think you said those losses don't bother you. I agree. It's I think there have been encouraging signs, and I think it's good that they have lost. The play was slipping. A lot of that was due to RJ Barrett not being there. But there were bad habits creeping into how they were playing, especially on offense.
Yep.
And I think losing games allows you to fix that early. And really, I'm hoping that they turn it around, they get healthy for the NBA Cup, because I really want to see this team healthy and fixing its mistakes, playing properly against a Knicks team that hopefully healthy is game planning for them really specifically. We're going to find out a whole lot about the team then and find out truly where they're at.
Yep. The NBA Cup, as you mentioned, it gives you an insight. Brandon Ingram said as much too. The players know, and the money actually works. The money actually works as a motivator because while there's a lot of guys who make insane money, they know the guys on the team who don't, and they know that it's not life changing because these guys are all slotted to make decent amounts of cash. But they're like, man, if we can get Sandro an extra chunk of change,
Yeah.
if we can get Gradey, Chucky Hepburn, if
Yeah,
Chucky
that's the
Hepburn, and you're like, that's my rook, it motivates, and teams, they bust their ass for it. They really play for it. Yeah.
it's the money, but it's also existentialism. It's like, what matters in life when you decide nothing matters? Oh, it's just whatever you choose to matter, right? Sorry, I just spoiled L'Étranger, but whatever. And that's what the NBA Cup is in my mind. It's like, oh, coaches started treating it like it matters, so it matters. So they treat it like it matters. And now it's this thing that teams game plan for, that teams treat as successful. It matters because they decided it matters. And that can slip at any moment. Maybe it goes the way of the All-Star game, but for now, it's actually a remarkably insightful moment of the NBA season. Really, really fun to watch. And I'm super excited to cover it.
Yep. I enjoy it immensely. And I love the soccer, like football structure where you can win
Yeah.
multiple things during a season. And then guess what? Teams that don't win the ultimate thing get to celebrate and bust their ass for something. And then guess what? You can validate yourself as not just a champion, but like that ultimate next level champion. If you collect 2 or 3 in a season, a double, a treble, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I love that. It's like you were so dominant over the course of the season. The NBA has gotten this complacency where we laud teams who don't give a shit, and they're like, oh, we lost
Yeah.
this, but we're just resting for like what really matters. And then they win the championship and everyone says, good, you devalued this portion of the season because you did what really matters.
Yeah.
But guess what? This team came along that said every part of the season matters. We won both. We're better because we won both. And what metric could you come? I love that, dude.
Yeah.
That's what I live for. That's what I want. They papered over stuff. And as you mentioned, this is the point I want to make. You and I can say the losses don't bother us, and we can say we're taking a larger view. That's our job, is to provide, micro and macro assessments. The Raptors players, I hope they hate every loss because the 9-game win streak was really a blessing. It made it so they can't toil around 500 and be like, well, this one not so bad. We're just a 500 team. It's like, no, you vaulted yourself out here. Maintain it. Be a really great team if you can. Queen of the Glass still thinks you're going to win 56 games. Go do it.
Ben Falk's a believer.
Yes. His numbers believe in us. Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you the same question I keep asking you. Has your stance on expectations from this team changed yet?
Yeah.
Good.
Because at Summer League, I said I thought that they would be the 6th or 7th seed, and I don't think that anymore.
Yep.
They should be better. And they've shown enough. I mean, and Darko made changes that I like, and not to listen, I'm Joe Schmo, I'm a schmuck on the couch, but Darko made changes that I agreed with and had been asking for, and they are working. So not only does that make me think I'm right about basketball, but in the way that makes the team I cover better. So, of course, I'm going to be like, well, this is good. This will continue being good because not only does it validate covering a good team, but it validates how I'm seeing the game. So I think they're better than I initially thought. And I was still a guy who was like coming in 12 wins over their over-under at the time. And I have to reassess. I think it's more so in the 46 to 50 wins this season. That would be my expectation.
Right now, they are in third, as you said, 2.5 games out of first. They're half a game out of fourth, a game and a half out of fifth and sixth. Like, obviously, 2 games, game and a half, that means nothing at
Yep.
this point in the season. But it would be a disappointment if they fell out of fourth or fifth at this point. I think they have proven, I think the 2 seed, I think, everyone in the league knew that was probably not a reasonable expectation to end the year at, even though they were there for a time. But 4th seed, 5th seed, I think Toronto can reasonably set their sights there right now. None of those teams coming up behind them, the Heat, the Hawks, the Magic, none of those teams strike me as clearly superior to the healthy Raptors.
Yeah. And to add to
The
that,
Cavs do, but the Raptors are 3-0 against them.
yeah. And honestly, like the Cavs, fine. They're supposed to be there. Like the Cavs, they should be like 55 wins this season if they're healthy. The Magic, if they really find things clicking, they have the talent, and boy, did they pay for it to try and punch up this season. If they found a groove, it wouldn't surprise me a bunch. There's no excuse. None. Zero. For the Heat, the Hawks, the 76ers, the Celtics, the Bulls, anybody, even the Bucks, there's no excuse for the Raptors to be worse than these teams. If the Raptors play the right way, if they keep busting their ass defensively, and they keep working for the right shots on offense, I think they will prevail above these teams. And they're hardly up on the Heat. But the Heat aren't supposed to be here either in number 4.
Yeah.
And the Hawks aren't supposed to be at number 5. But there's a big change in the Eastern Conference. There's a realigning going on right now. And the Raptors, they went and traded to be in this opportunity. They said, we're going to try and do it and see where we go. Be a team that punches up, then assess. You could even be a team that takes a step back next season because you've elevated your ceiling. I don't know. But be a team that wins this year. That's the Raptors. Win between 46 and 50 games. Do it for me, please.
Last year, 46 wins puts you at 6th in the East. I think this year you're a little bit higher than 6th if you win 46. But, 46 isn't that crazy. 46 is a good team, not a great team. And I think the Raptors have shown that they are a good team. We can expect them to be good going forward.
Yeah. Listen, this is all you and I wanted for things to matter. This is all any Raptors fan wanted, is for things to matter, to not chalk it up to the future. And whether or not the Raptors are contenders, who cares, man? What matters is that they're 14-7. They're the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they paid for a team. They have expectations to win. And if they don't, then we get to complain about it and say, hey, what's going wrong? And that is a very strong position to be in because expectations have changed. They're supposed to win. Great place to be. I love when teams are supposed to win. Everything matters. What they do on offense matters. What they do on defense matters. What the coach draws up matters. Little decisions they make matter. And then you get to go into a playoff series where all that gets zoomed in 18 times from that point, and then everything matters even more. That's basketball, where it's beautiful, where you're grinding for everything. Go win games. I love covering a winning team. I hope they stay winning.
That's basketball. That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's my Al Pacino.
Oh yeah, basketball.
The free throws we need are all around us.
There are cathedrals everywhere for those who have eyes to see them. It's a great quote, actually.
Whether you got into this in the morning, the afternoon, or at night.
I don't say
Thank
afternoon.
you so much for joining us. No, you go ahead. I can't. I shouldn't. I couldn't
Actually,
possibly.
I want you to try. Because this is a winning podcast now. We need contributions from everywhere.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us. The Raptors winning means that people listen to us, which is so much fun. You are all phenomenal, and we appreciate you more than you could ever know tremendously. Please like, comment, subscribe, and yes, even hype. Thank you all. Love you so much. Whether you got into this in the morning, at afternoon, or in the night, have a blessed day, and goodbye.